We are the most populous country on earth, and for us to grant marriage equality is a huge step forward. If it benefits humanity, if it benefits the child who's living in this rural area to be himself or herself or themselves, the sorts of people who can just get up and leave and migrate to another country are actually the sort of people that you really want to keep in the country, because they tend to be the most well educated, the most well resourced, the most likely to contribute to the country. And you're losing this, so there is an economic impact on the country, even if you are not gay and you don't know any gay people or anyone from the community. Increased incidence of depression, suicide, and HIV. People were not able to go to work, right? You fall ill, you don't go to work. The lost hours to just these three illnesses could be contributing as much as 1.3% of India's GDP. Where marriage equality exists, have on average a per capita GDP that is between 54 and 64% higher than countries that do not.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Express. Today I have with me Saattvic, an economist and a petitioner in front of the Supreme Court in the marriage equality case. The marriage equality case, which is the judgment of which is expected this week, maybe in a few days. Saattvic, thanks for joining Indian Express for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
First of all, Saatvik, just wanted to ask you, the judgment is to be delivered in a few days, maybe in a few hours. And what are you feeling right now? How are you feeling right now?
I mean, it's an immense sense of just giddiness, really. I mean, this is the moment that so many of us have worked, towards over the past so many years. It's a moment that, potentially that, at one point in time, we were even thinking, is this even possible that we'll see this in our lifetimes? But, it is that. It is this, this is potentially the most seismic shift in LGBTQ rights in the world. We are the most populous country on earth, and for us to grant marriage equality is a huge step forward for mankind in general. So, there is just a massive sense of anticipation, at the same time, a sense of gratefulness that I was, able to be a part of this in whatever small way. And to be standing shoulder to shoulder with so many other amazing people doing amazing work and being able to give back to the community and to humanity as a whole is an extremely humbling thought as well. And so it's just this mix of all of these emotions right now.
Yeah. And Saatvik, rewinding a bit, as you said, you got to be a part of this whole process. If you could tell us how you got involved into the process and what compelled you to, be a petitioner.
Right. So, as I'm a part of a petition with three other people, and we sort of represent the people who have moved abroad or are in the process of moving abroad, in search of a place where they are, allowed equal rights, where they can, marry the people that they want to marry. And so I moved abroad from India to Canada because my partner at the time was a Canadian citizen, thinking that, this is a place where, we've had the right to marry since 2005. And, one can just live a simple life of dignity that, straight people take for granted. But it just isn't available to us in a place like India. We took that decision. It's a terrible sort of decision, uh, family wise, to live on the other side of the globe from the people that you love, from your entire friend circle, your social network, and quite frankly professionally as well. Like your entire professional, your career is set up in India, your professional network is in India. So to leave all that and to come here, but you take that decision, one took that decision because at the end of the day, one could see that, okay, this is a place where if one works hard enough and sets all that up again, one can, live a life of dignity. And so then, I moved in August of 2020, and then later that year, Udit, who was a friend from India, got in touch and said, I'm thinking of doing this. Would you want to do this with me? And I sort of remember thinking at the time that this is this is crazy, to be a part of this. But then one also figured very quickly that, you know what, I was born into a family where my parents never had an issue with what I mean, they've known since, like since I was 14 years old, and it was never an issue in my house. They've always stood behind me. I went to, the best schools. I went to modern school, Barakhamba Road. I went to St. Stephen's College. I went to Oxford University. So, yes, a part of that is, yeah, you work hard, but a part of that is privilege. And I am incredibly privileged, and if this is so hard for me with the supportive system behind me, and still I feel that in India there isn't a place for someone like me, then what is it like for people who are not as privileged as me? What is it like for people who are growing up in small towns? What is it like for people who don't go to the best schools and the colleges? What is it like for people whose parents and whose communities don't accept this as a natural variant of humanity? What about people who live in environments which are oppressive, right? And I've thought to myself that, boss, yeah, fine, I feel that I have it bad, but these people, like most people in the community, have it orders of magnitudes worse than me. And if I can do anything, even if I can just sort of be just a name on a piece of paper, if in some way it benefits the community, if it benefits humanity, if it benefits the child who's living in this rural area to, to be himself or herself or themselves, then it's an obligation for me to do it, because I am being given this opportunity to do it, and it's an obligation to do it for the betterment of the community and humanity. So that's, the moment I realized that, it was all guns blazing, and just forward ahead.
You say you were just a name in the document, but you were much more than that, because your research was on the gay brain drain was cited during the hearings. So if you could tell us
Well, I mean,
a bit more
yes.
about.
So I was, Udit himself is a lawyer. I'm an economist. I've worked in, competition law, so I've worked with lawyers quite a bit, and continue to do so in my professional practice. No, so then I decide, and when we were talking about writing, the petition and our arguments, we figured that, our we are people that have left India. And while that affects us, right, it does affect India as a country as well. There is an economic effect. The sorts of people who can just get up and leave and, migrate to another country are actually the sort of people that you really want to keep in the country, because they tend to be the most well educated, the most well resourced, the most likely to contribute to, the country. And you're losing this, so there is an economic impact on the country, even if you are not gay and you don't know any gay people or anyone from the community, right? So I started doing some research into the economic effects of sexuality and gender-based exclusion, right? And it's actually sort of fascinating that the level of the magnitudes of these effects can be very, very high. And no one sort of has ever talked about this. I mean, of course, this is first and foremost a human rights issue, but people don't have, at least until we raised this issue, didn't seem to realize that there's actually an economic dimension to this. Like, this is hampering our growth. This is affecting you as a straight person, if you even if you have no interaction with gay people. The fact that you're excluding people from the community means that you're less productive at work. You're living in a city that's less rich. That you're not having access to colleagues who are potentially going to come up with the next big idea. you're losing out on tourism revenue. So, and the country itself, you're losing out on FDI, because companies don't want to come and set up shop in places which are, not sort of welcoming to people. So the sort of some of all this adds up. Um, I mean, so when I found out about this research, I felt that this needed to be highlighted, and that was sort of my contribution. I didn't conduct any of the research myself. That's not my area of research as an economist. But I feel, as someone who is used to working within the sort of Indian legal system, and writing reports that are read by judges, as an expert, as an economics expert in competition law cases, I felt that I could at least inform the putting some of this research into our petition and bringing that to the notice of not just the judges, but the public at large.
Are there any numbers that you can, mention?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you start off with um, simple things, right? So, we know that in India, the rates of depression, suicide, and HIV are orders of magnitudes higher than in the LGBTQ community than it is amongst the heterosexual community. Rates of depression are between 6 to 12% higher. In one survey, over half the people surveyed were regarded to be at some sort of risk of suicide. Um, uh, and there was a World Bank study in 2014 that estimated that just on account of increased incidence of depression, suicide, and HIV, people were not able to go to work, right? You fall ill, you don't go to work. The lost hours to just these three illnesses could be contributing as much as 1.3% of India's GDP per year, right? And then you add to the fact that there's another study which shows that gay people, when they do participate in the workplace, are 10% less productive than their heterosexual counterparts because of all this social exclusion and social pressure. So you add that, you're talking at something maybe up to 1.7% of GDP, right? So you're losing that. There is, it has an effect on the productivity of other workers as well. There are well documented links between having pro LGBTQ policies, so protective policies, and things like stock market returns, worker productivity, profitability, the rates of innovation, right? So the more, the better protection you have for sexual minorities, the better you perform on these indices. Over 90% of Fortune 500 companies have well documented policies in place, right? Then there's this aspect of the gay brain drain and sexual migration. We don't have data from India, but there was a survey in Hong Kong where similarly it was legal to be gay, but marriage is not legal. And there was a survey, and in the survey, over 50% of the community, over 50% of the community wanted to leave Hong Kong. And amongst those who wanted to leave, over 90% of them cited not being able to marry the person they love as the reason that they wanted to leave. And and like I said earlier, it is the people that are the most educated, the most likely to contribute to your economy. They are the people who are the easiest to pick up and leave, and they're the people that you want to keep. Okay, not only are people leaving, you're actually preventing good people from coming in. There are studies which show that the most economically well-off cities, the cities with the best companies, are also cities which are open and welcoming, where cities which have strong protections for people of sexual and gender minorities. There is a correlation with FDI returns. Then on top of that, you're talking about a multi-billion dollar tourism industry that you're completely losing out on, where gay people feel uncomfortable going to places which are which are not accepting. And you add all of this up, there's actually a fairly big, cumulative effect. Now, granted that correlation is not causation, but there are, the countries which allow gay people to get married, which allow sort of where marriage equality exists, have on average a per capita GDP that is between 54 and 64% higher than countries that do not, right? So, like I said, correlation is not causation, but this is fairly stark and shocking numbers. That social exclusion of people of sexual and gender minorities is hurting the country economically, and is holding us back as a country from achieving our full economic potential. And that has ramifications for everyone, not just people in the community.
Saattvic, you were closely following the hearings, and all these important things that you point out in some way or the other were cited, or maybe like in a more condensed manner, probably. How did it
Yes.
feel when that you've been working on, toiling on for all these years, being heard not just by the judges but by the whole country, because the hearings were, as you all know, made public.
No, I think the fact that the hearings were made public, I think, was the biggest service to our cause, because um, for a lot of people who are not part of the community, and who don't know people from the community, people live in an echo chamber, right? And in the echo chamber, you only hear one side of the story. Very often, people just don't know enough, right? For a lot of people, like, this doesn't exist. So we don't have any information about what homosexuality, or sort of anything that's not heterosexual, what all of that means. I think the biggest service that live streaming did was people got both sides of the story. You know, people who didn't have information got information. People like me who live in my echo chamber where everything is nice, and we got to learn what people from the other side are thinking. And we started thinking, okay, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. We hadn't thought of that before. This is the way to answer, this is the way to talk to them now. So in a really interesting sense, that managed to do something which is very rare in today's day and age, which is to show people both sides of an argument, which was useful for everyone. Yes, it was tremendously, it was an amazing feeling to have, your inputs being sort of spoken about in open court, and to sort of find that, okay, they found their way into the Wikipedia page on the which documents everything, and it's really nice. But let me also just say that as it is in research, right? Even like I'm an academic, I'm getting a PhD. You stand on the shoulders of giants. You do your contributions, but your contributions are not really your own. They're sort of built upon the contributions of other people. And like, there might be 50 something of us petitioners sort of standing up there in court, or represented in court, but we are standing on the shoulders of the people who fought in much worse times, in times where there were threats to people's physical well-being, and even threats to life. We are standing on their shoulders. Those people that fought through the 60s, 70s, 80s, like really dark times. And the fact that we are able to do this, and have this hearing, is not our doing. It's everyone that came before us. It's the entire legal fraternity that have turned up. It is the media that have shone a light on this issue. It is the entertainment industry which has started representing gay characters in pivotal roles in movies and in TV serials. It is everything. It is the march of human rights in other countries that we st- that we call upon for support as well. And it is regular people on the street, who are having regular conversations and saying कि अच्छा ठीक है, मेरा क्या जाता है, it's fine, सही तो कह रहे हैं. So it's everyone. So while it's great, but I'm very conscious that this is not anything special that I have done. This is I am just a cog in a wheel, and it was my fortune that I was given this opportunity to be able to do this. And I consider myself very fortunate, and I consider it a duty to be fulfilling my role in this entire game, in this entire march.
And in a few days or a few hours, we'll get to know what the outcome of all this hard work, emotions, and also a cross section of people coming together to fight for this, right? Not just you people. That if there is you from one part of the world, there is also like couples who are in hiding in who are also petitioners I can't mention now, but yeah. So I mean, it'll be an let's at least say like it'll be an emotional moment for a whole lot of people there tomorrow or sometime later this week. How do you plan to celebrate, or what are your plans? Or and if it doesn't happen, how do you plan to take it? Like as in how, I mean, it's very difficult to say. Like,
I decided not to come to India to for this. I'm still on the fence. I might just book a ticket and jump onto a plane tomorrow. I don't know. But no, I will. It, how will I celebrate? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I it's it's huge. Like I said, it would be a massive in a world where, in many countries, LGBTQ rights are being trampled upon, including here, including next door in America. Um, it would be huge for humanity, for a country the size of India, the first sort of big major developing country to have this. It would mean, it potentially means that my life, the course of my life changes, right? It means that I might sort of move back.
oh,
Um, it means, so I don't know. I, but at the same time, I'm well aware that, you know, that decriminalization was step zero. There was a friend of mine who works in the media, and he put it really well. He said we are now at step zero, and there are many steps to go for equal rights. And so, regardless of what happens tomorrow, there will still be fights. There will be many fights towards equal rights. Some of them will be in the court, and some of them will be outside of the court. In fact, the important fights of societal acceptance, I feel that, the judgment will go a long way towards engendering societal acceptance, but that's the next big fight that we have to fight. And then there are so many other fights that we have to fight. So the fight will go on, and if the judgment doesn't come in our favor, then we keep fighting. We keep, if I am given an opportunity to be a part of that fight, then I will join that fight. And the heartening thing though is that over the last few years, when I went to college, I remember, in sort of, I went to St. Stephen's College 2003, 2006, right? We had no gay role models. I didn't know any other gay person. I did not know another gay person. um, there was no such thing as support groups or no nothing. Now every university, every college, even the ones in, like, smaller towns, there is a ground. There are institutions that exist. There are people. There is support. Young people in today's India are qualitatively different. Like young people today, I find are much more accepting than, because it becomes hard to, once you get into a certain opinion or mindset, it's hard to change minds. But like the young people of today have grown up in a post-NAS world where these things have been out and front and center. And so they've had a chance to grapple with this at a very young age. And the vast majority of them that I have spoken to have come out and say कि हाँ ठीक है, हमको क्या फर्क पड़ता है, आप you do what you want to do. So it's very heartening, and I feel that I know that, if tomorrow we don't get, or this week we don't get the judgment in our favor, there will be an army fighting to get our rights. And this it'll just be one stumbling block, we will stumble, but we will continue to push forward and with renewed force and with many, many more people.
On that note, a hopeful note and a note of perseverance, we end this conversation. Thank you, Saattvic, for joining us, and wish you the very best as a petitioner. And I personally feel you should take that flight and come down and be part of the celebrations, hopefully. So yeah, thank you for this.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.